My name is Nathan, and I served in the military for over 8 years. I always believed in honor, loyalty, and protecting the people I loved, but none of that prepared me for the war I'd face back home. I was deployed in a remote desert base when it happened. One hot afternoon, after a long patrol, I opened my laptop to check emails. There it was, a short message from Becky, my wife of 5 years. It didn't even have a greeting. "I've filed for divorce. Please don't try to contact me. It's already done." I stared at the screen for a long time. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Maybe she was angry. Maybe something happened. But as I kept reading it over and over, I realized she meant every word. She was gone. Just like that. There was no call, no warning, nothing. I sat in my small bunk, sweating, dust still on my boots, my hands shaking, but not from fear, from heartbreak. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I just sat there, completely still. My brothers in arms kept walking past, laughing, cleaning their gear, talking about home, but my world had just cracked open. And in that moment, I made a choice. I wouldn't beg, I wouldn't fight for someone who left me at my weakest, but I also wouldn't forget. The rest of my deployment felt like a blur. I buried myself in duty, longer patrols, harder training, more silence. But inside, something in me had changed. Not in an angry way. Not yet. Just empty. Number. It wasn't just the divorce that haunted me. It was how she did it. No talk, no face-to-face, no waiting until I got home safe. She didn't even care if I made it back. I kept wondering who she really was behind all those years of soft smiles and "I love you" texts. A few months later, I got emergency leave and flew back home. The moment I landed, I realized how alone I truly was. No one came to pick me up, no welcome sign, not even a message. I took a cab to our house, or what used to be our house. It looked different. A new car in the driveway, curtains I'd never seen before, and then I saw them, Becky, and a man I'd never met. He looked younger, maybe mid-20s. She was laughing, leaning into him like they'd been together forever. She didn't see me, or maybe she did and didn't care. I told the driver to keep going. I didn't even step out. That night, I checked into a cheap motel on the edge of town. I stared at the ceiling for hours, thinking about all the nights I had stayed awake overseas, dreaming about coming back to her. What a joke. But it wasn't just heartbreak anymore. It was insult, disrespect, and something deeper I couldn't shake. I wasn't going to chase her, but I was going to find out the truth. The next morning, I went quiet, calculated, not emotional. I still had friends in town, not many, but the right kind. People who owed me favors or respected what I'd done. I started asking around. Nothing direct, just small questions. "Hey, you still talk to Becky? You know who she's been seeing lately?" Most people didn't want to get involved. Some looked away. But one of my old high school buddies, Jason, hesitated when I asked. "She didn't tell you," he said, surprised. "Number, I've been out of the country for almost a year." Jason looked uncomfortable. "Look, man, I'm not trying to stir anything, but she's been with that guy for a while, months, maybe longer." I clenched my jaw. "Before the divorce?" He didn't answer. He didn't have to. Later that evening, I created a fake profile on social media and started watching her public posts. Pictures of them at concerts, weekend trips, her smiling in his lap, all posted just weeks after she'd filed the divorce papers. One photo in particular made my blood run cold. It was them at a family BBQ in my backyard, with my dog sitting beside them. She didn't just move on. She erased me and replaced me with him. And the worst part? Everyone acted like it was normal, like I was the ghost. That night, I didn't sleep. I just sat there in the dark motel room, phone in hand, replaying everything. All the sacrifice, the faithfulness, the long nights, the danger I faced just to come back home and be tossed out like I never mattered. I didn't want her back. I wanted justice, not violence, just something that would make her feel what I felt. The betrayal, the humiliation, the silence. I had no plan yet, but I knew one thing: this wasn't over. The first thing I did was get a job. Not because I needed the money, I still had some saved from my time overseas, but because I needed routine. A reason to be back in town without raising suspicion. Something simple, quiet. So I took a job as a delivery driver for a local courier service. No one would notice me, and I could learn the streets again. Keep an eye on things without standing out. Every day I drove past our old neighborhood. I saw her car in the driveway. Sometimes his truck was there too. I never stopped, never slowed down. But I saw everything. 2 weeks in, I finally bumped into her at the grocery store. She looked surprised. Her smile faltered the moment she saw me. "Adam, I didn't know you were back." "I've been back a while," I said, calm, flat, no emotion. She looked uncomfortable, glancing down at her basket. "How have you been?" I wanted to say 100 things, that she'd destroyed me, that I knew everything, that I saw the photos, read the dates, did the math. But I didn't. I just looked her in the eye and said, "You moved on fast." Her face went pale. "I didn't mean to hurt you." "But you did." She opened her mouth to speak, then closed it. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I didn't respond. I walked past her like she was a stranger. After that, I knew I had power again, not in what I said, but in what I didn't. And that's when the idea started forming in my mind. If she wanted a new life, fine, she could have it. But I was going to leave a mark before I walked away for good. Something she'd never forget. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, thinking about everything she took from me. The years, the loyalty, the future we planned. I could have moved on, tried to forget, but the betrayal was too deep. I needed something more than silence. I needed closure, and maybe, just maybe, a little justice. I didn't want to hurt her physically, that wasn't me. But emotionally, I wanted her to feel the sting I lived with every single day since I opened that message. So I started gathering information, quietly, carefully. I went through her social media. Not just hers, his too. Every post, every tagged photo, every friend in common. I made a list of people they interacted with, places they went, patterns in their routines. And then I found it. He had a weakness: gambling. It wasn't obvious at first, but I noticed him posting about poker nights, football bets, and casino trips a little too often. One of his buddies posted a story at a betting shop, tagging him in the background. That was all I needed. I started following the money, found out he owed a few people, quietly, off the books. The kind of people you don't want to owe. That gave me leverage. I reached out to one of those people anonymously, slipped some photos under their shop door. Him leaving the casino, him laughing with stacks of chips, his car parked in places it shouldn't be. No threats, just photos. A message that said, "He's got more than you think." I didn't hear back. I didn't need to. I just planted the seed. 2 weeks later, I heard from a friend that he had stopped posting. His account went dark. People started whispering about trouble. That's when I knew things were beginning to crumble. I didn't stop there. Once I saw his silence online, I knew it was working. But for me, it still wasn't enough. Olivia had moved on so easily, smiling in photos, posting blessed captions while I was rebuilding my life from scratch. I needed her to feel what it was like to lose everything she thought was secure. So I started visiting the same coffee shop she used to love. I knew she still went there. She'd posted a story there just last week. I didn't approach her. I didn't say a word. I just made sure she saw me, alone, calm, confident. At first, she ignored me. But then, the third time I went in, she looked up and froze. I met her eyes, just for a second. Then I turned and walked out. No drama, no confrontation, just silence. A few days later, I got a message from an unknown number. It was her. Why are you showing up like that?" I didn't reply. The next day, another message. "Are you trying to scare me? What do you want, Liam?" Still, I said nothing. But then, she made a mistake. She showed up at my place. I opened the door, and she looked shaken. Her makeup was smudged. She hadn't slept well. She was nervous. "Are you doing something to us?" she asked, eyes darting around like someone might jump out. I leaned against the doorway and gave her a calm look. "You think I'd waste more time on people who treated me like trash?" I said. "Trust me, Olivia, whatever's happening to you, that's just life catching up." She tried to act strong, but I could see it. Fear creeping into her perfect little world. I didn't slam the door, I just closed it slowly. And in that moment, I felt something I hadn't in months. Power. The next few weeks were strangely peaceful for me and chaotic for them. News started spreading. Olivia's influencer deals began to dry up. Apparently, screenshots of her past shady messages had somehow found their way to a few brands. Nothing illegal, just enough to make her seem unreliable. As for Theo, I heard from a mutual acquaintance that he'd been fired. Office gossip said he had been caught lying about some numbers. Minor stuff, but enough to raise suspicion. And let's just say, the company didn't want the drama. I didn't do any of it directly, but I knew the right people, and I dropped the right whispers. One afternoon, while I was finishing a design project at home, I got another message. "Olivia again. Why are people turning against us?" Then another. "I know you're behind this." I didn't respond. She tried calling, but I let it ring. She was spiraling now, and I hadn't even touched her. A week later, she posted a vague story on Instagram. "People only love you when you're useful. Lesson learned." And that's when it hit me. She was finally feeling it. The emptiness. The same kind I felt when I watched the woman I loved walk away with my best friend without even blinking. It wasn't about destroying her life. It was about making her face the truth that actions have consequences, and the people you step on don't always stay down forever. A few days later, I saw Theo in person for the first time since everything fell apart. It was at a friend's birthday gathering, small, intimate. I almost didn't go, but something told me I needed to. I walked in and saw him sitting alone on the balcony, a drink in his hand, eyes tired and distant. He looked older somehow, like the weight of his choices had finally caught up. I debated, ignoring him, pretending he didn't exist. But instead, I grabbed a drink and walked over. He looked up, surprised. "Hey, Liam," he said, his voice low. I nodded. "Theo." There was a long silence. Then he said, "I messed up, man." I know I did. I looked him dead in the eyes. "Took you long enough to figure that out?" He didn't argue, just nodded, staring at the ground. I lost everything. Olivia barely talks to me now. Clients are gone. People don't trust me. I waited, not saying a word. He looked at me again. Was it you?" I raised an eyebrow. "You really think I'm that powerful?" He didn't answer. Maybe he didn't want to know the truth. Then he said something I didn't expect. "I'm sorry, Liam. Not just for what we did, but for how I let it all get to my head. You were the only person who ever had my back, and I traded that for someone who wouldn't even hold mine." I stood there for a moment, letting that sink in. "I'm not angry anymore," I said finally, "but I don't forgive you. Not yet." He nodded slowly. "I get it." And for the first time, I saw him, not as my enemy, but as a man broken by his own choices. That was enough for me. After that meeting with Theo, I walked away feeling lighter. I didn't realize how much of my energy was still tied up in anger. I thought revenge would give me peace. And in some ways it did. But closure came from looking him in the eye and realizing he wasn't this villain I built up in my head. He was just lost, weak, human. And I didn't need to carry him with me anymore. My life slowly began to rebuild, not just professionally, but emotionally too. I reconnected with old friends I had pushed away during the mess, people who reminded me who I was before all this. I started working on a new venture, smaller, more focused. It wasn't about proving anyone wrong this time, it was about building something right. Late one evening, I got a message from Olivia. "I heard about everything. I'm sorry for my part in it. I hope you're doing better now." I stared at it for a while. So many things I wanted to say, so many memories tangled between us. But I didn't reply. Some stories don't need a sequel. They need an ending. Instead, I opened the window, breathed in the cold night air, and smiled. Because for the first time in a long while, I felt free. Months passed and my life slowly found its rhythm again. I wasn't chasing success the way I used to. I wasn't trying to outdo Theo or prove my worth to Olivia or anyone else. I was just living, honestly, quietly, and on my own terms. One afternoon, while sipping coffee at a small cafe near my new workspace, a young entrepreneur approached me. He recognized me from an old interview and asked if he could sit. He said, "You're Nathan, right? You built Rise Tech?" I nodded, a bit surprised anyone still remembered. He smiled and said, "Your story? It inspired me. The way you bounced back, it gave me hope when I hit rock bottom." That moment hit me hard, not because it fed my ego, but because I realized something. All the pain, the betrayal, the losses, they weren't just scars. They were signs I had survived. That young man didn't see me as someone who had failed. He saw someone who had endured. And maybe that's the real revenge, not destroying the people who broke you, but becoming someone stronger than they ever expected you to be. I shook his hand, gave him some honest advice, and walked away with a quiet smile on my face. My name is Nathan, and this was the story of how betrayal nearly broke me, but healing made me whole.